I'm very fortunate to have a great team, and I'm going to wait to introduce them until Ryan and Colton get back. Sorry, Tim and Gary, you'll have to sit through this, Okay. So what the heck is going on in our operation? Well, we've had a lot of changes. We've learned a lot this year. We're still learning, and we hope that Mother Nature will give us opportunities to do it again. One of the things we're doing on Janie's farm is diversifying crops. I mean, pretty well in the past, we've been number 2 yellow organic corn. We have been doing dark hilum, clear hilum soybeans, and we've been marketing soft red winter wheat, which the last 3 to 4 years has been basically marketing vomitoxin. We only had one lot last year that qualified for food grade, and that lot has been going to Journeyman Distillery in 3 Oaks, Michigan. And so we've developed a relationship with them through MOFC, and they have expanded. We used to have to take 2,000-pound totes up to them every so often, and now they have made their facility such that we can send semi-loads. So that's been nice. But now, you've all heard about us going into the milling. So this past year, we raised about 3 acres of turkey red. We had 1 acre of a new wheat from the University of Illinois. They decided they were going to name it, and I said, well, I think it ought to be named Ayersman after Jack Ayersman. Jack's the longest running organic farmer that I know of in the state of Illinois. The Wilkens over at Eureka or over by Carlock, Congerville would probably be longer, but anyway, Jack's been pretty involved in the movement of organic agriculture in Illinois. So we had the pleasure of planting a grow out from the University of Illinois this year on that. We had 75 acres of hard red winter wheat, warthog. We were very fortunate, and agronomically it looks as good as any of our soft red winter wheat did. And the majority of what we raised this last year was still soft red winter wheat. It's kind of what we knew. And when you're going into something new, we don't like to throw all our eggs in one basket right out the window. So the other thing we did is we raised spring wheat. Now, I'm jumping ahead of myself here because I need to go to another slide, but I get so excited when I'm thinking about the things that we're doing that I kind of get ahead of myself. So what are we doing to manage risk? We're diversifying crops. We're building a mill. We're putting in a cleaning system. And then I put down USDA, and I'll explain that as we go through the rest of my slides. Again, I was talking about the majority of our grain being soft red winter, small grains. And this year we worked with Ryan Butzel, who is a neighboring organic farmer. When it's a neighboring organic farmer, that's within 20 miles. And anyway, Ryan raised some spring wheat with us and some barley. And then he also raised some soft white winter wheat as well, about 15 acres. So, on the soybean side, like I said, we've been raising clear hilum, dark hilum. We have developed a relationship with a marketing group. It's actually Mind, Body, and Spirit. They're Japanese. They're called Shumei. and they have protocols called natural agriculture. And so we have 14 acres this year that we're raising for them of soybeans. We did 14 acres last year, and that relationship's going to continue to grow to corn and wheat in the next couple of years as well. I had a field of mung beans, just 2 acres. Actually, over there by Andy somewhere is a green plant with about 7 or 8 pods on it. Those are, it's the green one underneath there. Anyway, actually, if you wouldn't mind passing it so you can pass it around. That's got some promise. Again, it's a learning curve. We're on our 4th year of trying to raise black turtle beans. I think it was Wyatt who had some real good words of advice for me, but I'm still hard-headed enough to keep trying. This is our 4th year. We had a really good crop the first year. The second year we had a third of a crop. The third year we didn't even harvest. And this year, if we get a chance to do a tour, you're going to wonder where the beans are, because they died early because of 17 inches of rain in August, and there's not a lot out there. Again, I'm fighting City Hall because it's something that I really want to raise. The weather patterns here the last 3 years have kicked us in the butt. For some reason, Iroquois County has gotten more rain than any other county in the state of Illinois, I think. And at different times. Last year we started June 7th, went through the middle of July. Our wheat harvest was crazy, trying to harvest between showers. This year it started really the third week of July, and we had a couple of days in there where we got our cover crops in, but then we haven't turned a wheel all of August until just last week. We got in a few more cover crops and then put in some alfalfa and stuff. So we've had some crazy weather patterns, and we were joking here a little bit ago about raising rice. Well, by God, I'm going to raise rice next year. I can't see where it's a failure. Well, don't worry, Paxton's going to get just enough. We're trying other dry beans. This year we started out with a plot. It was planted on June 10th. And unfortunately, we started wheat harvest about the same time that needed to be cultivated. And I mowed it down yesterday. I was not happy with the way it looked. I don't have time to do plots. And that's another one of those things somebody up here said, make sure you got time to do what you want to do. I want to work on a mill. I want to make that work. And I just don't have time to do the research. Now, we're going to continue to do research, but I'm hoping to have someone else that will take the lead on that. And there's a meeting tomorrow in Champaign, another meeting here on Saturday, and I'm hoping we'll address that situation with some cooperation with people in the state of Illinois to get some organic research done. And I'll be glad to provide whatever I can do, but I just can't do the labor myself and get it all done. So anyway, I did put out some lentils and some azukis. Again, that was another thing, you need to check the germination on things. I put the lentils out and about 5 of them grew. So that didn't work out too well. As far as our corn, like I said, we were yellow number 2 hybrid corn. We've gone to raising seed corn with Stephen Gray from Ashkum here. He takes care of all of the issues with the seed, the detasseling, the roguing, the harvesting. We do all the agronomy work. We do the farming and do our best to keep it clean. And that's something I was going to talk about too, but I'll try and stay focused here. Another thing we're working on is open pollinated corn. I've been working with Bill Davidson extensively from the University of Illinois Extension at Bloomington. Probably most of you have heard of him that are here today. He has been promoting open pollinated corn seeds, different types of varieties, and beans and wheat, oats, all different crops that we feel have a place in the marketplace other than just the big three, corn, beans, and wheat. And it's what the consumer is demanding. So anyway, we're working with the open pollinated and then also from those open pollinated seeds, determining what would make good milling corn for polenta and flour, so on and so forth. The other thing we're going to do, and I alluded to this earlier in the conversations, is we're going back to having some alfalfa. It's been, Ross was at 2012 the last time we really had a commercial field over 30 acres. So for the past 4 years, we've been doing rotations with 1 year of a cover crop right after our wheat and then going back into corn. Well, we took a little break from our rotation, and every time I've done that, that's kicked us in the butt. And we put out pumpkins 1 year, it was in corn the next, and the next thing you know, we had giant ragweeds. And so I feel like one way to recoup that field, reclaim that field, is we're going to put it to wheat this fall. It's in soybeans now. We're going to put it into alfalfa, and we're going to see how long it takes, but we're going to do our best to clean that field up. When new crops come along, I believe in trying them, and probably it's got me in some trouble, but I really think we need to be raising what the customer, the consumer wants. Okay, so I'm trying to work towards that model. But when I've strayed, like I said, away from our rotation, that's when we get the weed issues. That's where we can run into maybe some disease pressures or insect problems. Now, we haven't seen any insect issues in the growing crop. I say that with confidence because you can go out into these fields, and we've got, if we get to go around the corner over here, I've got some corn that's 12 feet tall, and it's not bent over, and the root systems are there. And so as long as we stay in our rotation, I'm fairly confident that we avoid the issues that conventional agriculture has on their plate. And one of the other things I've noticed is right after it's probably in the middle of August, the field across the railroad track here, nice young farmer, does a great job, beautiful crop of beans. And all of a sudden I started to see the leaves start to crumble. SDS. Here he's done all this work, had a beautiful looking crop, and along comes SDS and ruins it. Now, it's not ruining it. He's going to lose probably 5 to 10 bushels an acre, but it took everything off the top. Why? I want to know. Maybe some of you agronomists have the answer to it. Is it high fertility? Is it a combination with herbicide program? I know there's issues there that we as organics don't have. And so I want to encourage you, whatever you do a rotation. Do a grass, do a grass, do a legume, do a grass, do a legume, or the best you can do. And I think you'll avoid some of the pitfalls that conventional agriculture is going through. So another thing we're raising is we had an issue where Harold bought, and I do this sometimes. I buy seed before I know that I can plant it. So we had some 2-year-old white sorghum on the shelf, and I thought, boy, we got 11 acres in the back of the Hardy farm. That'd be a great place to put that. Well, didn't check the germination. It's just been dry all the time on the shelf. We probably had 2,000 to 3,000 standing population. All right, so then, what are we going to do? What are we going to plant in there to clean that up and raise something, if nothing else, for a cover crop? So buckwheat. So I ordered buckwheat from the I think it's Mindak out of North Dakota or South Dakota, and anyway, so we planted it. Now, we planted it over there on the Hardy farm, but we also planted 60 feet along the road over here for a cover crop. How many of you went by that buckwheat and recognized it on the way in here? Did anybody notice how the first 3 feet along the road ditch really looks good, and then the rest of it looks like crap? Well, 17 inches of rain in August, So we can have these grandiose plans, but like Dave said, sitting here, Mother Nature has the last word, Along with that, Will and I, when was that? That was first week August, wasn't it, Will? We put out a cover crop plot out here with 4 different types of cover crops. And it's amazing. My conventional neighbors went by and they looked at that buckwheat and they go, whoa, I haven't seen that since the 30s. I had an old guy at church. I think my dad planted 5 acres of that. My mom made pancakes out of it. I said, yeah, that you got it, George. That's right. Well, he says, that's neat. Now, why didn't you plant the rest of the field? So again, 17 acres or 17 inches of rain in August. So with what we were doing, we planted spring wheat. We planted a variety called Glen. It's a high protein wheat. I got the seed from Tor Oshner out in New York. We're actually working with them right now. They're providing the flour to Italy and Chicago, and they've got more business than they know what to do with in New York, and they're sending me an email every so often saying, have you seen the mills yet? Because they want me to get online so they don't have so much to do. But this year we planted 75 acres or 70 acres of spring Glen wheat on our own, and then Ryan Butzo put out another 100 acres. And so here we are. This is something you don't see every day, somebody tine weeding their wheat. But I have to say, that did a nice job. And I wouldn't have believed it. I actually took a picture of it, sent it to Tor, and I said, I think I'm tearing out my wheat. And he texted me back and said, you're not tearing it up enough. If you can still see wheat out there, you're being too nice to it. Well, that came back after we got done harrowing it, and it tillered, it was thick, it was beautiful. I was proud of that field all year long. That's a keeper. That's a keeper. I realized, and I was the first person in Iroquois County that they know of who's raised spring wheat at the FSA office. Nobody else is registered spring wheat. But I think that's going to be in our rotations from now on, especially since we need it for the milling aspect. With all the rain we had earlier on there, the last week of July, we ended up taking the last 50 acres of wheat with a swather. And it just so happened Ross and I kind of had thought about, out in New York, they use a swather and a pickup head to get in and do their wheat early. So they're doing wheat as early as like for us, I will say, the 20th of June. Well, I don't know if any of you guys had wheat this year, but we were already combining about, I think it was the 24th. And so we didn't need the swather and the pickup head like we thought we were going to in the beginning season to get a jump on it, but we ended up using it on the end because by the time we got to the last 60 acres, the grass was starting to come up through the wheat and there was green stuff, and that made a world of difference. We were down on Ryan's farm, made a world of difference. In one day of drying and wilting, we were able to run the combine through there with no problem, and the wheat was down to 13%. So the mill and cleaner. Boy, what I wouldn't give if I could have taken you up there and walked you around. But we've had some interesting roadblocks since we started going into this project. And like I said, it was April 30th when we sent the first email to solidify the deal with Things Co. And here we are now. It's the 8th of September, and I know it's on a train, but it's not in Ashkum. So our goal this fall is to have the mills up and running, the flour mills. One's going to be dedicated to a whole wheat flour. The other one will just be for whatever specialty flours that we're going to mill, and that's going to be on a customer-wide basis. We're also going to have a Ross Camp roller mill to do some pastry flour, and there's actually two of those, and one, if we get up and running sometime soon, one of them will be for cornmeal. So, and our plan is to be operational with the cleaning facility by next spring. We want to get the mills up and running. MOFC cleans, they've got an organic certificate. Pro Harvest over MWS Seeds, they have a cleaning certificate. So we're going to have our wheat custom cleaned starting out, because it's more important that we get the flour mill going than waiting to have the cleaners in place. But as you see, there's a Super 29D. It's probably older than, well, it's not older than my grandma, that's 100. But it's an old one, but it's in pretty decent shape, needs just a little bit of work. But we also bought another one. Ross went to a sale and bought that in gravity table over here, and the gravity table isn't as big as we would like it to be. One day I'm going down the road and I thought to myself, Tammans down here used to clean beans. I wonder what they ever did with their equipment. So I called Bob, and Bob says, well, we want to get rid of that stuff. So we ended up buying a full cleaning facility from Tammans Seeds over here about 3.5 miles away. So you can drive 100 miles and find somewhere you can look underneath, look under your nose, and there it is. So we now have 2 gravity tables, two mills, and we're also going to add a color sorter, because we're going to need to have a good quality soybean and wheat. This year we've been blessed that we don't have vomitoxin in our wheat. All of ours is tested negative for any vomitoxin. So this year's not going to be an issue, but the past few years, if we could have run our wheat through a color sorter 2 or 3 times, I think we could have gotten the vomitoxin down to a tolerable level where we could have sold it for food. As it turned out, it all went to the feed market in Pennsylvania, New York, the East Coast somewhere. That's where most all of our organic wheat went to last year, except for the one lot that we were able to sell to Journeyman. So that's what our mill's going to look like. Okay, it's a self-contained unit. Ours will be a little bit different, but this is the system that Ross and I visited in Eugene, Oregon. And this is a system that when we saw it, we went, okay, this is what we want to do. But it's all negative air, so it's all vacuum. When we walked into this building, no dust. The only dust there was they were actually filling a 2-ton or 2,000-pound tote of flour, and there's a little bit of dust right up around that, but there was no dust. That's an important key, I think. So if you're gonna do me a good point there. All right, so this here is actually your mill. Okay, it's right there. It's 36-inch. It's horizontal stones, and it feeds into a vacuum line, takes it over to airlock, drops it into the sifter. This is the sifter right here. The sifter has 3 different screens in it, or you can change the screens to what you want, but then you can either run it back through or you can take it out and use it for animal feed. Then it comes down into another air system, which then brings it back up and then drops it. Actually, I'm pointing the wrong way, but it drops it into the bagger. And so one of the differences we're going to have is we're going to also have a mixer so that we can take 2 types of wheat, mix it together, and make a combination flour. Okay, so before I get into that, the other thing that's happened with the mill is our original plan was to put a mill right out here, right north of the grain bins. And that's still our long-term plan. But we're kind of tight in area here. And so when we started looking at what we wanted to do, we couldn't get everything in. And when the project got up to $1.6 million, that's when Harold went, you know what? I'm just, no. So what we've done is we've bought a commercial building that's 15,000 square feet in Ashkum. And there's a 70 by 70 area of it that's all concrete, heated floors, concrete block. Like Andy said, it'll be wiped down ready. And that building will house the flour mills. But then there's also other areas in there where we can set up the cleaner and the and the gravity tables and the color sorter. So I feel starting out, I'll tell you, my German roots took over. They took over big times. I was thinking that I'd like to see the first bag of flour go out before I start getting too excited about this. And so anyway, so that's our story. Our mill's going to be 3 miles north of here, and it's going to be in a pretty good sized building. And anyway, once we get the mills in, we can start addressing everything and putting it together. All right, so I put down USDA because I think managing risk is important. And if you're going into organic production, it's vitally important, and your banker is going to feel this way too, to have crop insurance. And I'm not a crop insurance expert. That's why I hire my crop insurance guy to tell me what I need to know and give me advice. But it's a vitally important part of being able to survive transition, and also when you have natural disasters. If there is not a program for the crop you're raising and crop insurance, NAP is available. The non-insured crop disaster program, it's $250 a crop in Iroquois County. And we actually used that last year in our dry beans. They ended up paying us $400 an acre for a total loss on our dry beans. And so if you are raising a crop that's not traditional in your county, 3 years ago it was pumpkins. Unfortunately, what they thought pumpkins were worth and what we thought pumpkins were worth was not the same, so we didn't really get anything off of that. So I encourage you, if you want to try some new crops, to check with your farm service agency. The non-insured crop disaster program is administered through the FSA office, and so they can tell you whether or not you would qualify. But if that crop is not insured in Iroquois County, they should insure you. So the other thing is for a few years, I kind of drug my feet on conservation stewardship program. And part of it was because every time I had somebody, I said to somebody, okay, I'll plant this for the next 5 years. Something would come up that you may not be able to plant it, and I didn't want the government flying down my throat for something that I had no control over. But this year we went in and we talked to them, and this is something that if you're going into transition, $40 an acre. That helps with transition. So if you sign up for the Conservation Steward Program and you're going organic, there's incentives, like they'll score you. And if you're going organic, that's a feather in your cap. And if you're going to go into rotation, that's a feather in your cap. If you're going to grow your own nitrogen, and if you're going to use deep-rooted plants like radishes, or we found out this year we were using red clover already on some farms, and that qualifies as a deep-rooted crop. So Uncle Sam will pay you to do some of the things you're already doing or planning on doing. And so if you are going through transition and you're kind of scraping at how are you going to make this cash flow, I suggest that you look into the CSP program because it's there, folks. So points to ponder. Earlier, Wyatt talked about the price of organic corn and beans. Last night I looked up the prices and I threw this in. The prices that my neighbors are getting today, and it might be up a little bit, might be down, but it is $3.04 for conventional corn. It's also $9.87 for conventional beans and $3.52 for conventional wheat, and that is got to be perfect. Because if you deal with Cargill in our area, anything at all, and it's 50 cents off. They know how to discount. So relatively, yes, we're going through a little some depressed prices in organics, somewhat, but we're still relatively better than what our neighbors are doing, and our costs on our farm are not near what theirs are. And so while I wished it was better, I enjoyed selling corn one time for $15.50. I had a pretty big grin on my face. But reality is that's not going to happen continually. I think in organics, if we can get to a place where we're between 10 and 12, that's a pretty good return on our money. And so Yeah, right now we're a little low. I think if you checked around and had your name in the door at a number of different places, they're going to be given spot bids this fall of $10 and $11 for corn. But again, you got to have storage, you got to have it dried, and it's got to be ready to go because they got to run a mill every week. And if they don't have enough corn, they're going to be calling around, find out where they can get it, and they're going to pay what they need to get it running. And so those are some of the opportunities that I think are going to happen with the organic market, and we have to be Johnny on the spot ready to do it. So this is where Harold gets on his little political soapbox a little bit. Check with the companies you're doing business with, and if they're in favor of the checkoff, I'd talk to them about whether or not you want to do business with them, because putting a tax on us as growers so that they can use it for their programs just doesn't set well with me. It didn't set well with me in conventional agriculture when they were doing it, and I got to tell you that when the price went up, the Soybean Association was the first one to blow their horn and tell you how wonderful they were. But then when it went back down like it normally would, they blamed everything else. Well, I'm here to tell you that I don't think that taxing me, taxing you, taxing anybody for those promotional programs is going to really do us any good. Because, again, if the price is cheaper across the pond, they're not going to be buying my grain. They're going to be buying that grain over there. And are they going to have a checkoff on the grain coming in? I mean, who's the producer? So the other thing I'm going to encourage you to do is support organizations that are looking into this checkoff. Like I said earlier, I congratulate Vladimir in Ukraine or Russia, who is doing organic production and has his paperwork in order, and he's selling to my buyer. Fine and dandy. But if he's taken grain that's been sprayed using conventional methods and some big corporate entity is pulling some shenanigans so that they become my competitor, I got no use. And so I know there's some investigations going on. I know there's going to be some repercussions at some point. A few years ago, some of you probably remember when there was a Canadian company that was bringing in non-GMO soybeans from across the pond, bringing them into Canada and then shipping them into the United States as organic. You remember that, Barbara? I can't either, but yep. And they were shipping into Simmons Feed Mill in Ohio, Salem, Ohio, and they were buying them. And again, it took a while, but they finally got it stopped. So I'm going to encourage all of you. You're seeing the things that have come our way, okay? If you would have talked to me even 3 years ago, I had no clue about going into milling, but it just so happened that somebody I knew somebody who was looking for an organic farmer who would raise wheat and consider selling wheat flour into Chicago. I don't know what your opportunity to sell wheat flour is going to be. May not even be wheat flour, may be something with another commodity or another organic crop, whatever. But when an opportunity presents itself, look at it. Even if you don't take it, study it well. Don't right away go, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do that. There's been a lot of good ideas and a lot of good opportunities have been passed up because there was a risk and people weren't willing to look at it. And so I'm going to encourage you as you go through the next year here, as things change with the local markets, with local foods, get involved. There's going to be more and more restaurants, grocery stores that are going to demand more of what we raise. And you just as well as be taking advantage of it as anybody. So my son said to me one day, I took about $1,600 that I had on hand, and I walked out the door, and he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go buy a tractor." He said, "What kind of tractor?" I said, "Well, it's an old Oliver with a V8 in it." And he said, is it necessary?" I said, "Ross, I'm 55 years old. It's not necessary, but I want it." And so I took that tractor last year. It didn't look like that. I took that tractor over to Ben Meister's, and I said, "Ben, this is my midlife crisis tractor. I want you to fix her up for me." So Ben and his nephew and his son, they totally redid that tractor. And I don't think you'll ever see another toy with my name on it. At least my wife won't allow it, and Ross wouldn't think it's necessary either. So anyway, I'm ending my program with a picture of my tractor, and this is my midlife crisis. So.